What's up, guys? You can probably tell by the stuff on the table. We are going to be doing a detail cleaning video for the CP33 specifically, but this is a generic video that you could apply to cleaning all 22 long rifle semi-autos. So you guys have been asking for it. I've been putting it off because I hate cleaning guns. But here it is. I've got one that is pretty dirty. Several hundred rounds in, and so we're gonna do it. We're gonna take it down, do it. I got all the tools that I use here. This is not the normal clean that I do. This is a clean that I do every once in a while, right? I'll do several just kind of wipe down cleanings. Basically, anytime I come off of the range with a 22 semi-auto, I wipe all of the gunk out. But every once in a while, I go through a detail clean because there is some stuff that builds up over time on these that needs to be addressed with a little more thorough approach. So I've got the gun cleared, gloves, got a brass brush here, just the cheapo ones you can get at any gun store. Dental pick, this one's brass, but even the steel ones, as long as you don't go crazy, it's gonna be fine. What I've got chucked in this drill is a 25 auto brush that I use for the chamber. I know I'm using a 25 auto brush on a 22, it's too big and I'm gonna destroy my barrel, blah, blah, blah. I get it. The reality is that a 22 brush in a 22 chamber just does not get enough pressure to scrape crap out. So that's why I use the slightly oversized brush. Guys, you don't have to do this to your guns. This is strictly a video showing you how I maintain my stuff. So you can look at this as entertainment. I don't actually have any loyalty to any dedicated lube. I'll tell you that I prefer synthetic motor oil or automatic transmission fluid over the gun oils. The reason being that any company that manufactures motor oil is held to standards that are far higher than the non-existent standards for gun oil. As well as, I think about this in terms of R&D and testing budgets for these companies. Mobil 1 spends more on research and development to make a product that works really well in high temperature, high friction environments, high pressure environments. They spend more money on research and development in a year than all of the gun oil companies combined have ever spent in the history of ever. So you're going to get a higher quality product with that, right? There's more testing, more budget to do things right. There it is, guys. So, but I have this, right? It's gifted. And the reality is most of this stuff, it's just there to trap goo and be slick while it does so. So that's fine. One of these little bottles lasts you forever. But I promise you, whenever I'm out and I find myself in need of lubricant for a gun and I don't have any, I don't go to a gun shop and buy one of these bottles. I go to an auto parts store and buy, or a Walmart, and buy the smallest like bottle of, 2-stroke engine oil. It's fine. It's better than this probably. So there's the lube, and then on here's a weird one that you probably don't see in any cleaning videos for guns. This is CLR. This is specifically a foaming CLR, but it's just CLR. So I'm not going to use that on all the surfaces. I will show you very specifically where I use that, and then how I remove that, because this stuff will not be kind to gun parts. We'll get into it though. Guys, before I actually jump into the cleaning, I want to remind you, do all the buttons, hit all the things, like, subscribe, follow on all the social media stuff. Also see the link in the description for Patreon. The Patreon contributions support this channel, but more importantly than that, they support me so that I can eat and feed my children and keep a roof over my head. So thank y'all for doing that. And if you aren't doing it, show me some love. This is how I have my CP33. Only thing I've done here is unloaded it and taken off the decon sling. Yeah, so before I touch any of this, I know this is a dirty process, so I'm just gonna throw on the gloves. 22s get filthy, like fast. Semi-autos are finicky unless they're pretty clean or pretty slick. So I try and clean often. Here's what I think all semi-auto 22s cleaning regimen should be. I think you should do at minimum a wipe down and a reapplication of lubricant on all friction surfaces every 250 rounds. We've got the gun broken down. Really, as far as I'm going to break this down, let's start off. So I'm going to start off with just wiping all of these surfaces down, getting all of the lube out of everywhere. So best tool for this is a paper towel, guys. Just wipe it out with a paper towel. You don't need fancy anything else. You can use a shop rag if you really want to mess up your washing machine and get oil all over your clothes. Ask me how I know. This gun and a lot of the 22 models, guys, all this cleaning stuff, it applies to all the semi-auto 22s. All these guns have a lot of really narrow little nooks and crannies and pain in the ass areas to get into. It's not the worst thing in the world if you don't get into some of those areas, as long as there's not junk floating around that can get knocked loose and move elsewhere, right? So if it's not on a friction surface and it is not gonna go anywhere, it's okay, guys. It's okay to leave it there. There's a lot of overflow areas for junk to go in this gun specifically, but in most of the 22s. You can see I'm kicking out some crap from the rail slots in there where the bolt carrier and everything reciprocates. So that is looking much cleaner. Now, if I were just doing a wipe down clean, like the minimum effort clean, this is still how I would start. Wipe down all these surfaces, pick all this schmoo out. Then, so did the upper charging handle and the bolt. Guys, notice that this stuff just wipes right off, and that is because this bolt is relatively wet. If you run these dry, you're gonna have a lot more schmoo to, a lot more hard stuff to chunk off and scrape off. If you run them wet, most of this stuff just wipes off, so. Right, so most of that just wiped off. In fact, almost all of that wiped off. All the surfaces I can wipe, it just wipes free. I don't need to have this nasty, whatever, the solvent. All the solvent is gonna do is liquefy that schmoo and take it into the places I don't want it, like the firing pin channel, stuff like that. I'm gonna compress the spring here. Just wipe the rod that I can get to, and I'll just spin that. Then that's the one that's super dirty right there, that feeder area. That'll cause problems for sure. All right, so everything is wiped down. All the internal surfaces, especially all the friction points, are wiped clean of the lube that was on there. One last little spot there under the catch. Now, what I'm gonna go through and do is identify little areas where there are shmoo built up. Only on the friction surfaces, that's all I care about, but I'm just gonna knock that loose with a brass brush. Gravity is your friend, guys. That's why I invert a lot of this stuff while I'm doing it. Let stuff fall out. You can see, right? Just a lot of junk will fall out if you just brush it a little bit and then tap it. Something to be aware of, these spots, these really tight spots here that you can't get into with the brush, you can just wipe out with a pick and get all the big chunks out of there. And that's all that really matters, right? I'm searching, I'm feeling with the brush to see if there's any carbon stuck. A little bit in there, but nothing really on any of the surfaces that I need to worry about. I've got this feed area here. You can see down in there, hopefully, if I can get some light on it. There we go. So down in here, there's a lot of buildup, like right here in this corner and down here on this. That is something that I'll take care of because the projectile is probably impacting there. And what you're gonna see here on some of the like feed ramp, feeding areas, and in the chamber is often you'll get a buildup of wax that is very stubborn. So on the feed ramps especially, all of these, even the higher quality rounds, they're coated in wax, and that wax just rubs off on everything. So that is done, right? The lower there, it's done. This didn't need any more attention than I already gave it with the wipe down. It's done. Got the bolt carrier assembly, right? There is some shmoo on this spring that I'll just try and knock out with the brush. Some of that fell out. But again, I'm not super concerned about that. You can see it squish some of that out when I compress the spring. That's oil more than anything, guys. Doesn't feel super gritty. All right, so yeah, that is pretty good. Just with wiping it down, I've got almost all of that clean. Now, there is a little buildup in here, you can see. So I'll just take my pick, run it through the corners there. I'm going inside of this extractor because this is one of the places where shmoo will often build up. If you're running the gun too dry, this is one of the places where hard carbon will build up in this area and this area, all around where that rim sits. And what that'll do, guys, is as it stacks more and more, it's going to put pressure on the extractor. You may not get an extractor to engage because the buildup here has raised the round off of the face of the bolt there. So you may not get extraction there, or you may get kind of random pore extraction there. Another thing that you'll see here is you'll start to get light primer strikes, because as this area raises and as carbon builds up on this, as that presses up against the face of the barrel here, well, as that stacks, it only takes a millimeter for that to have the gun out of battery, where the striker or the firing pin, depending on the model that you're shooting, it just won't dent the primer. You've moved it out of the way. So these areas right here and right here have to be pretty squeaky clean. Luckily, if you keep the gun a little bit wet, you saw it just wiped out 90% of that, and then just with a quick pick, it's done. So that's done. Set it aside. Then I'm going to come in here. This is where things get a little tricky, specifically for this gun, because you can't remove the barrel easily, right? I actually have never taken one out, and I am not going to start today. So I'm just going to go through here and pick out all of the big pieces of carbon. So I'll get you real close so that you can see that. There's a lot of carbon schmoo in there. And this is kind of just like coloring. You're coloring this in with the pick, getting all the schmoo. You will also get lead buildup here. So you can see I have lead buildup on the face of that. And this is where elbow grease actually is needed, because I'm not gonna do anything with some chemical to let sit and try and eat that lead away. I'm just gonna get in here and pick it out. And on this design, on the CP33, it's fine, because it's fine that this stuff chunks off and falls in there, because it just falls forward and it comes out of these tubes. I'll show you in a second, but you can see a little chunk fell out right there. Yeah, or it falls into the barrel, and we're gonna clean the chamber anyway, but yeah. This right here, getting in detailed, really being thorough in scraping all of this clean, that's a big deal, guys. The more stuff that's stacked on this area, the more that is having to fire a little bit out of battery all of the time. So this is not actually that bad. This little block here on top of the barrel is, I'm not sure what it is, but it's rough finished from the get-go. So don't expect a perfectly smooth surface to be remaining once you're done picking the stuff out of that area right there. So we got that. It still looks pretty dirty in there, right? Oh. But it is much cleaner than it was before, and we've removed all of the problematic buildup. Got a little bit of schmoo in here. All right, that is out. I'm also getting the notch right here where the extractor sits as the gun is in battery. You can get some hard carbon buildup there. This gun has been run wet, and so there's not really any hard buildup, but you can see there's lots of little powder flakes like that. 22 shoot dirty. They don't get full burns on anything ever. So nature of the beast, guys. All right. little blob just fishing around in there. Now, this corner all the way in there is a problem area because the bolt has to go all the way in there. It's just got this little tiny chamfer or recessed area that'll allow shmoo to sit in front of it. I'm talking about shmoo gets squished forward by this surface as it travels into battery, and it only has this tiny little recessed area there in the corner where it can build up. Once it's built up there, then any more of that is actually going to hold the gun slightly out of battery. And guys, remember it's direct blowback, so out of battery and with 22 pressure, I mean, there's nothing locked in this at all, ever. So that little tiny bit, it'll still run for a while. But if you've ever been shooting and you notice that, you know, it's just like night and day, like somebody flipped a switch on your gun and it's not going bang anymore, that is usually the case. Is you've got some buildup here in the rail, right in there, right down in there, in there, and in there. This little paddle tool is pretty fantastic for getting in and almost like squeegeeing out the rail there. And you can take a little piece of paper towel and stuff it in the rail and follow that down. And I mean, nice part about this is it actually goes above the barrel. So you're kind of stuffing it into the area of not my problem anymore. It's the dirt or the shmoo is still in the gun, but it's just in a place that it's never going to give you problems. So there's that. I'm going to wrap this up and get there's like 4 rail surfaces or friction surfaces here. So there's this guy, I'll use the pin. So there's a friction surface in there. You can see there's wear on the inside of this because there's some wobble right there and right there. There's all of this surface which rides against the receiver there. That's a friction surface. It needs oil, but it also needs to be wiped clean. Same with a little bit here, there, and there. Top and bottom of the rail in there, which is that guy right here. All right, so generally all of this that I've done right now, I would have done on a quick wipe down of the gun. Because it's easy. This is the big stuff that keeps the gun running. Now let's go into the stuff that I don't really do every single time I clean, and that is chamber maintenance. You're going to see the end of the chamber and a little rim inside of there where the rifling starts. And that's normal. It's from the factory. And then you're going to see, if you've shot this at all, especially if you've shot it a good deal, you're going to see another ring, and this can look like it is machined. Another ring inside of the chamber. For guns that are not that dirty, that ring is probably just wax. But on guns that are shot a lot, so 22s that have a high round count. What you get in there is a hard carbon ring. It's such a hard carbon ring that it is not going to come out with this alone. So with a bore brush alone, even with a spinning bore brush, not going to come out, not even going to come out with an oversized brush or an armorer's brush. An armorer's brush, if you have never seen one, are the steel loops. They work really well, but they will not remove a hard carbon ring. What that hard carbon ring does, so that carbon is going to build up at the very end of the case length for the ammo that you're shooting. If you're shooting one brand of ammo, 22 is the worst for this. You're going to notice that has a different case length than another brand of ammo that you may be shooting. Even in the same manufacturer, you will see that there are different case lengths for 22 long rifle in different bullet weights. So if you're firing a variety of ammo, or if you're ever going to switch up, well, if you've shot a lot of a shorter case length, then there's a hard carbon ring directly in front of that case in the chamber. It usually does not grow to the point where it will stop that one brand of ammo short of 1,000 rounds without being addressed. But as soon as you switch to a different brand of ammo that is longer, the case as it feeds in will hit that hard carbon ring, and it's just enough friction to keep that gun slightly out of battery again. So you can get out of battery clicks. You can also just get the gun to be where it's locked up, where there's a stuck case in there, because the longer case rides over that hard carbon ring. It doesn't chip it off or push it forward. It pinches in. So that ring is binding that case, and that's what gets you the stuck cases in 22. These guns have to be ripped out. Like, you have to go in with something like this and rip out that carbon. There's actually 2 rings in there before the end of the chamber. Can you see that? What I end up doing is this. I will take my CLR. I will put that on my oversized brush. It does not take much, guys, just a few drops. We don't need to go overkill on this, but I'm going to use this brush as an applicator for the chamber. And yes, I know that if I do this too long, it will wear out the chamber and open it up. I'm gonna let that CLR sit on there for 15 minutes. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes and that CLR has done its thing. It's time to get that CLR out of there. It's totally fine for me, and I'm gonna rip this again, but it's totally fine for me to sit here after that CLR has been sitting on there and polish this chamber like so. That's fine. That second spin will have removed all of the hard carbon ring that CLR soak had liquefied. Now I'm going to hit this with a bore snake. The first 2 inches of this bore snake are soaked in just regular tap water. The rest of it is dry. So this is my way of doing a wet patch to neutralize that CLR and pull it out, and then a dry patch to absorb anything else that's in there. And now we have ripped that clean, and we shouldn't see that ring in there anymore. So nope, now we don't have that hard carbon ring left in our chamber. Last thing, and this is very specific to the CP33. It's not really a part of cleaning, but if you seem to have gotten a CP33 that just doesn't feed reliably and it doesn't feed off that first magazine, what I want you to do is tear it down like this and look at this surface right here. That tiny little bit of feed ramp right there. See how mine exists? On some of these guns, it doesn't really exist. Also on some of these guns, there's a significant burr right there at the top of the feed ramp, where the top of the feed ramp meets the chamber. Guys, you can go in there and you can polish that out. I have not had to do that on mine, but I have had several students now who have said that they found a bird, that it didn't look like mine. They polished it, it resolved the issue, and it brought that gun to a much higher level of reliability. So there it is, guys. Your gun is taken apart now. What I will do now is lube this up. So here's how I lube this up, guys. Boom, boom. You can tell I'm being really careful here with how I apply this, right? No, I can take that all over the entire surface of that bolt area. That is super slick now, so slick I dropped it. And I can throw that in the gun with the charging handle. I'll throw some lube on there. Boom. Put that handle back together so the little square meets the carrier. Wipe my hands off. On the lower here, I don't add any lube anywhere. I don't need to. But you saw I lubed up the bolt really good. And then I will take this, and right behind the bolt, I'll put a drop on either side to go into those rails. I know that's overkill, guys. I know it is. But running it wetter is better. Then I will reassemble. That is done, guys. So I can put my can back on. Guys, I do clean my can around this time too. We're not going to do that in this video, but if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. If there's stuff that you do differently or stuff that I've done here that you disagree with, let me know in the comments. And if there's other stuff you want to see, let me know, right? Let me know in the comments. Those of you who are patrons, you want to go in detail here, you want to deep dive this with me, message me and I'll go through it with you, right? We'll have that conversation just like we have our conversations all the time. So that's it, guys. Final reminder, like, subscribe, do all the buttons, hit me up on Patreon. Thanks for watching, guys. Keep training, stay safe.